As a team, we will prove that technology can either be helpful or dangerous.
Would you trust GPSs? If not, why?
It's sort of a yes and no. I tend to look up the information on GPS or on Google Maps or something and check out the information before I start the drive. I want to make sure it all makes sense.
When it comes to highway accidents, we've made recommendations about novice drivers, young drivers in the learner permits of their stages of learning how to drive, to restrict electronic devices. We've made recommendations banning bus drivers, school bus drivers, motor coach drivers, and we've also made recommendations for commercial drivers, those truck drivers that are driving 80,000-pound vehicles. And we've made recommendations in all other modes of transportation, and really this is the last frontier.
And when you say there have been years of research and investigation going into this, tell us about the role that NTSB plays. When there is a crash, you go on the scene, you look at exactly what's happened, and you're essentially investigators piecing together what went wrong.
We are. We're an independent investigatory body, and our job is really to investigate the accidents, determine what happened, and make recommendations to prevent them from happening again. And so our charge is very simple, but it's not up to us to implement those recommendations. That's up to others. And so we make recommendations to people who we think can change what's happening to prevent accidents, to save lives.
Let's look at some statistics related to distracted driving. And this comes to us from the NTSB and the New England Journal of Medicine. 600,000 crashes related to distracted driving. That equals 3,000 deaths a year, and it's 4 times more likely to crash, resulting in a hospital visit. So tell us about how you came up with these numbers, and what are you evaluating to learn this?
Well, and really those statistics and the data are other researchers' information. According to NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, there were 3,000 fatalities last year due to distractions, all types of distractions. The NTSB, our charge is to investigate accidents, and so we look at a handful of accidents each year. And what I can tell you is we're seeing distraction being a more prevalent cause of an accident or contributing factor in accidents across the spectrum. We don't go into these accident investigations looking for cell phone use or texting. It's just that we're finding it more and more as a part of our investigations.
This could be you. Make the better decision. It can wait.
What do you think about texting while driving?
I think that's a very bad idea, and there's a very likely chance that someone texting and driving could get hurt, and they could hurt other people by getting in crashes. I think it's a very unsafe thing to do, and I think people shouldn't do it.
Thank you.
So use mobile patrol, which was having police officers blend in with traffic. We didn't find that nearly as successful. And then we also used checkpoints, where we would employ a spotter and we would radio ahead and the cars would stop. And we didn't find that to be too much success, not as much success as the roadside watching. We also would employ a strategy we called looking down from on high, which is where we would find roadways that had embankments nearby where we could sit up on top and look down in the passengers' cars to see what they were doing. Because it was very easy to see driver behavior, to see them looking down, but it was difficult to see what they were looking down at. So when we put our patrol vehicles up high and look down on traffic, we could very much easily see into the passenger compartments of their cars, which also leads to the enforcement vehicles. We found enforcement vehicles, our enforcement vehicle of choice would be an SUV because it sat up a little higher than traffic and we were able to look down on people's cars. And then obviously I've already discussed about our pairing of offenses. Pretty much for every cell phone ticket that we could issue, we could also issue tickets for following too closely, speeding. Next slide. Our indicators. Keeping our eye on the driver. Just like with Buckle Up New York or Click It or Ticket, looking in the inside passenger compartment of a car, you can see what the operator is doing. You can see whether or not they have a belt on. Well, the same as for cell phone use. Very easy to do. We would look for phone to the ear. People actually putting their cell phone or GPS things right on top of the steering wheel and driving their car like that as they texted along. We would look at drivers' eyes, as I said before, when they were looking in their lap. And then I likened a lot of our stuff to the DWI driving cues. The maintaining lane position, the speed and braking problem, the vigilance issues, the judgment problems. We saw all of those things with people talking on their cell phone and texting. When we saw people looking down in their lap and following somebody too closely and you pulled them over and said, "What were you doing?" Invariably they would say, "I was texting on the phone." Next slide. It's very important to know your roads. When I had that slide up with the agencies up there and we were averaging 4 cell phone tickets an hour, you saw that the city had substantially more tickets. And I attribute that not to the aggressiveness of the officers, I attribute that to the officers knowing their roads. The city officers knew their roads, the state police and the sheriff's officers, they were our guests in the city. They didn't have as much knowledge as we did, so they kind of had to think on the fly and develop their strategies, but they came on strong towards the end of the waves. We would focus our enforcement near business districts because we found that people, when they're going in business districts, that's when they're conducting their business on the phone. We looked for places where we could easily enter traffic, but it's not going to change outcomes if we don't have drivers pay attention to the road.
Who do you think is most involved in car accidents?
I think it's probably going to be young drivers, new drivers that just got their driver's license, just simply because they don't have as much experience driving and are more likely to make a mistake.
Okay, thank you. What do you think about texting while driving?
Well, honestly, I think that's their choice. So if they want to do that, then they can go ahead and hurt themselves. But that's their choice, and that's where I stand on that topic.
We strongly encourage you to pass stricter laws to prevent the national problem of accidents and the temptations people have to text while driving. Thank you for your consideration. We hope we change your perspective on texting while driving.